Hey everybody, and welcome to Accounting and Accountability. It is Monday, the 24th of October, 2022. My name is Dr. Amanda White, and
Dr. Nelson Ma.
it is week 12 of semester.
Yep.
Yay, we've survived.
We made it.
Survived another one. Though
Yeah.
exams are due for us, we have to have all of our exams written by Friday and checked and signed off. So we're all stations on that particular activity at the moment. Two really interesting stories this week.
Yes.
Coming back to one that we've already talked about. We already had talked about Netflix before, but Nelson, what is happening with Netflix now? Because we knew that they were going to start having ads. They'd had declines in subscribers, even though they, have been doing really well with Squid Game, Bridgerton. What's happening?
Well, this might be the turnaround of the year. So Netflix, we've
Besides
talked about
Qantas last week.
Well, yes, Qantas has their own. Qantas has done pretty well too. Okay, but in terms of success stories, well, we have Netflix that's come off what was two pretty bad quarters in 2022. So in quarter one and quarter two of the year, they lost about 1.2 million subscribers, and of course we talked about that in detail about the issues associated. Well, quarter three results have come out, and they've actually added 2.4 million subscribers. So a really good result.
What are people watching? Okay, because obviously, as the inflation starts to hit, people might be trimming back on their Netflix subscriptions, but people are still subscribing. What are people watching that they're subscribing for?
Yeah, so some of the really popular shows, Dharma, the Jeffrey Dahmer docuseries, Stranger Things Season 4.
I've never seen any Stranger Things.
No, it's good.
Okay.
Extraordinary Tony Wu, so sort of for those Korean drama fans, as well as like movies like The Grey Man. Have you seen any of these?
No, gosh, no.
Okay.
No, we have seen after Robbie Coltrane's death, we have watched all of the Harry Potter movies again. Because the guy who played Hagrid had died. So I'm sure that all of everyone received their extra royalties from us on that. And my kids love Pokemon. So it's just watching a lot of Pokemon stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But, I was watching Netflix last night. I like science fiction type of things. So we got to the end of Another Life with Katie Sackhoff, which was really good. So now that they were losing subscribers, they cut costs, and yet somehow now they've made more money. And apparently they have a lot of cash on hand after all of this goings on of thinking things were bad and tightening their belts. And now they have extra money in the bank. Yeah,
so, this additional add-on to subscribers has really benefited them on top of investing less in TV shows, in that they already have a pretty good array of shows, and they've cut the ones that they think are as I guess, profitable.
I think they're buying a lot more international drama too.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a lot more Korean, Chinese dramas, South American as well.
So a lot of outsourcing, I think, has benefited them a lot. And so they're looking this year at making a pretty sizable profit of $5 to $6 billion.
Hang on, $5 to $6 billion in profit.
Yes, of operating profit.
Huge.
It's huge, considering these streaming companies have historically lost money because their goal was to get more people to subscribe.
And there's no advertising, right? So they only generate revenue from subscriptions, though now we have advertising.
There's an advertising tier coming in the next next month, actually.
It's less than $10?
Is that $7?
$7? Well, look, I think my kids, the first time they saw TV with ads, I think my eldest was like 7. He's just like, what is this? What is this? Where's the story gone? So I don't think we can go back to TV with ads.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Yeah, same thing with sort of YouTube and it's always been around. I mean, Spotify's always had one. Apple Music has always had an ad-supported tier. So.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
You can not pay. There's like a free.
There's
a free version of it.
I pay for the paid one.
Oh yeah, so do I. I mean, I think for music, it kind of feels different when you're like sort of like listening
in the groove, listening to a song,
exactly.
And then there's
and then all of a sudden you learn about what movie's playing on at the local cinema this weekend. But coming back to one of your points,
so I mentioned they have a lot of free cash,
and it's like free cash.
Hundreds of millions of dollars of extra cash.
So this quarter, they're looking at a free cash flow of $473 million.
Now, is this net cash at the end of the period after they've paid for everything, they've paid for any loans? This is the leftover cash?
So the most basic definition is your net profit minus any investments you've made
Okay.
in additional assets.
All right.
And so this is
What are they going to
sizable.
do with the cash?
Well, that's a good question. What can they do with the cash? Because they
Well-
obviously haven't spoken specifically about it, but
You've got options. You could reinvest, all right, because you're going to be, I think they're writing seasons 3 and 4 of The Witcher, future seasons of other movies. So you've got to, think about investing that cash in future shows that are going to generate more revenue.
got to pay Henry Cavill.
Got to pay Henry Cavill the millions of dollars that he's getting per episode.
Yeah.
How many more seasons of The Crown are going to be coming along?
Yeah.
So there's a lot that, you need to think about reinvesting, because if
Yeah.
you take all of this free cash flow and just say return it to shareholders in the form of dividends, then you're not going to be setting the business up for future growth. So you need to make sure that you're making some of that reinvestment. You may pay some in a dividend. You don't want to make the dividend too high, though, because if you make the dividend too high, people are going to expect a big dividend every year.
Yeah, kind of sets the bar, the expectation. So if they
Exactly.
don't overdo it, I think they could have a sustainable dividend that's going to keep all shareholders happy.
And then, you want to consider the amount of leverage, looking at that debt to equity ratio and saying, well, have we got too much debt? Looking at the world, Russia doesn't seem to be backing down. Ukraine is not backing down.
Inflation's up.
Inflation is up everywhere. The Australian budget is happening on Tuesday, the federal government budget. And I think in the budget papers, they're expecting inflation next year to still be 5%. And, potentially going down towards 3%. In 2024.
Yeah.
So we're still going to see inflationary pressures.
And so that means that interest rates are going to stay high, which means that loans are going to remain more expensive.
So everybody's going to be cutting costs. So just because they're making good money now and they've made this profit doesn't mean that it's going to stay there. So you want to also, just like you would budget and keep some money in a bit of a rainy day fund, you'd want to be doing that at Netflix as well.
Absolutely.
Now, the second story, I used Uber a little bit, but not a lot, because I don't go very many places, to be honest. I'm a homebody most of the time.
Yeah.
I had never used Uber Eats until COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
And
this
what
might
did
have
you-
been
what
in a
did you
previous show.
think?
Look, it's great when it works. I had a meal sitting at a restaurant with no driver for 45 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was just like, I'm just getting in the car to get it myself. Which, and then you sort of feel bad. I wish I'd just ordered with the restaurant directly, which is what I do now unless one of the kids are sick.
Yeah.
But Uber has now moved into
Advertising.
advertising.
Just like Netflix.
Hang on, how are you going to get an ad when you're riding in an Uber?
Well, there are actually a number of places that you can go to,
Because
to sell.
in taxis you'll see there's TV screens now in the back of taxis.
So I guess the starting place, what Uber has on top of taxis is the app itself. So when you log into the app, obviously they can target you with some sort of ad, and they're planning to also include ads in some of the cars in some of the Ubers that.
I guess it'd be easy enough to hang an iPad from the back of the seat rest or something like that.
But I guess.
And while you're waiting, right? Because when I'm waiting for an Uber, I always have the app open because I don't want to miss my ride.
Yeah,
so I guess while the app is open, there
Yes.
could be a little something playing.
Yes, but you know what's really interesting about this is Uber's really making the most of the knowledge they have of you. So
They know what food you order.
they know what food you order, and in Uber, in the app, they know where you're going, and so they can target the ad based on what's your destination. Are you going to a vegan whole food store? If that case, maybe they might target you with some vegan products.
And there's probably some affiliate marketing revenue they'll get in there as well.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Now, I have an Uber story this week in that we've seen rideshare in terms of somebody else drives and you get in a car. But sometimes you want to be able to drive yourself, do your grocery shopping, park, do a few errands.
Yeah.
And Nelson, you've got a car, but a lot of city people don't have a car.
No.
Or you might want to do that when you're in another city and you don't have a car either. So car share is a big thing. So you might have seen, I think GoGet is one of them.
Yep.
There's a few other car share organisations around. I saw a new apartment block being sold somewhere in Sydney where one of the attractions is that there will be Teslas for car share for residents.
Right.
In there. So you'll be able to, they'll have Tesla charging stations if you already own one, but there'll be some common cars that you'll be able to book and
Yep.
drive so you can do your grocery shopping, etc. And that saves a lot because if you want to buy an apartment with a parking spot, it's very expensive.
Yes.
But so there are lots of different car share companies around,
Mm-hmm.
but Uber has just purchased an Australian car share company, and they're going to be offering car share through their Uber app.
Yep.
I believe, and I don't know whether this is true or not, or whether it was just like some internet hoax. I also saw a thing on Instagram where there was dog walking. So you could hire someone,
hire a dog walker.
hire a dog walker through Uber as well. Which is like, I'm like, what?
Well, that's
what?
a very interesting
I'm not sure if
tidbit.
that's true or not, whether I saw it, I'm like, what? And I didn't have time to investigate
Yeah.
further. But, what's going to be really interesting is, this could be the test market for Uber to launch into a brand new type of business. But if you're the business being purchased as well, we think about businesses, their value is assets equals liabilities plus equity. Or your equity is your assets minus your liabilities. But Nelson, would you ever sell your business for just the value of its net assets?
No. Well, it really depends. In most
It's
cases,
complicated,
no. It's
but-
complicated, but in most cases, no. Because the idea is if someone wants to buy your company, right, they must see value in it beyond what is in the equity.
That could be your customer base,
Your brand,
reputation,
your reputation, all
social
those.
media presence.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of things beyond just what's on the balance sheet.
All right.
Because we can't recognize everything.
So if I'm the car share company and I think my net assets are worth 100 million and Uber comes along and buys it for 200 million, then what do they record in their balance sheet? Because I'm only giving them net assets worth 100 million. What do they do with that other 100
Yeah.
that they paid for of this like reputation
Yep.
or intellectual property or other things that are not on the financial statements of the
Yep.
target business that's being purchased?
So that's what we call goodwill.
Ah.
So you have this item that shows up on the balance sheet in the equity to reflect, as an asset, to reflect the excess that you paid for something. And so this goodwill is meant to capture all those things that we don't include on the balance sheet normally.
But
for a
it
company.
allows the company that's purchasing it, like
Yeah.
Uber, to include it as an asset because they're
Yes.
really thinking that there is that asset.
Yeah, that
in
there's
the
something
business.
beyond just the physical items like the cars or whatever that they own.
All right. And now we know that, if they own cars, for example, that are being shared, then there's going to be depreciation.
Yes.
Do we depreciate goodwill?
So depreciation is only meant for tangible assets, right? Things that you can physically see sort of start to like break down over time. Whereas for intangibles like goodwill, you can't it doesn't really break down over time, but it does sort of, it does in itself impair, which is why we have what
So
we call
it gets
impairment
used
expense.
up a bit.
It gets used up.
All right. So this is a very complicated part of accounting where you have to try and figure out each year, the accountants and the auditors, how much that goodwill should be impaired. And it's very subjective. So there are lots of models and things around goodwill and impairment, but this is probably one of those areas where the accountants and the auditors are going to have the most discussion because it is subjective based on different assumptions and different projections that are going on.
Yeah.
Now, with this Uber one as well, I don't think they're actually buying the cars themselves because this car share company that they're purchasing allows you to say, I'm going to put my car up for car share, sort of like Airbnb,
Yeah.
but for your own
your
personal car as well. So you might decide, like, sometimes you're going to drive your car for Uber.
Yeah.
Other times you might allow people to borrow it,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
Which is interesting. And it kind of aligns with what Uber has sort of focused on in the past, which is not having those assets on their balance sheet.
Yeah, yeah.
And it benefits them a lot not having the cars that are used for Uber, and leaving it in the hands of the owners that
And then
drive the
everyone's
car.
a contractor.
So everyone's a contractor, so they keep those things off their balance sheet, and it benefits them because it means that they don't have to make all these big investments in cars and stuff that depreciate and
They're
lose
just
value.
investing in technology, right?
Yeah,
They're
it's all
investing
tech.
in the platform and the intellectual property and
Yeah.
the data from the platform that
Yeah.
they can then perhaps sell back to the advertising thing.
Yes.
Loops all back around. So they're
Yeah.
really in the information game
Yeah.
than anything else.
Yes.
Fantastic. All right. So I just had a complete mental blank of what we were going to do next. It is almost
Yes.
the exam period. Make sure that you check your exam timetable. I have
Mm-hmm.
a student who doesn't see anything in their exams at the moment. So they went on to My Subject Admin and there's nothing. If that is happening to you, get in touch with your student centre or contact UTS straight away.
Absolutely.
So that you can sort that out, because there might be a technical glitch somewhere. If you haven't paid your fees, you might not be able to sit your exams.
Yes.
So make sure that all of that is up to date. Next week, students are on a break. Now, your coordinators should be having some what we call consultation sessions or drop-ins. So make sure that if they have them, go along. Even if you don't have a question, why is it good to go to a drop-in even if you don't have any questions?
Well, you'll be around your peers, and some of them might have really useful questions that you didn't think to ask. So you'll learn a thing or two.
You can still learn by absorbing and observing. You don't necessarily have to be actively engaged there. Fantastic. Well, you might not be able to see this out the window because the light's behind us. It's raining in Sydney again. I think it's going to rain tomorrow, but I believe there's sunny weather coming. So make sure that you get outside for some vitamin D and have some of that outside time to help relieve stress.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So have you finished writing your exam yet?
Well, I'm not teaching this session.
Oh, you're not teaching. The person who's teaching for you, have they written their exam
I
yet?
certainly hope so.
Well, Nelson, if you feel like doing something and you want to procrastinate, you're welcome to come help me
I
write
really
mine.
appreciate that offer. I will think that through.
All right, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.